Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mobility Outlook Conversations. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Vikram Handa, who wants to transform the EV sector by providing synthetic graphite anode materials for use in producing lithium-ion battery materials. He's also the managing director of Epsilon Carbon Private Limited, a leading manufacturer of carbon chemicals and India's the only backward integrated company with a fully dedicated source of raw materials, which he founded in 2010. Mr. Handa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, first of all, I would like to ask you about your initiative providing synthetic graphite anode materials for lithium-ion batteries. So, what was the idea all about, and how did you come up with this idea and this initiative?
So thank you. For the last 6 years, we've been in the coal tar distillation business. Coal tar is a byproduct of the steel plant. It's a waste for them that they generate, but coal tar has a lot of carbon content in it.
Right.
So for the last 6 years, we've been manufacturing various products out of coal tar, mainly servicing the carbon black industry and the aluminium industry. But recent technology advances and what you see happening in Japan, China, Korea, I noticed that people are using coal tar to really go downstream and taking advantage of the carbon content that is there to manufacture anodes for lithium ion batteries.
Okay.
And we see raw material availability in India growing. So we started exploring about 2 years ago what else can we do downstream and do more value addition in India itself.
Okay. So China being one of the leading suppliers of anodes, and they are also the largest importers of the coal tar, the raw material mentioned about. So how do you see the whole scenario for the Indian EV sector, and how do you want to help the EV manufacturers in India with this kind of technology?
Yeah. So on the anode side, it's quite interesting because globally, all gigafactories are very, very dependent on China. So China, like you mentioned, doesn't have necessarily all the raw material with it, but they are able to import raw material and process it there into making anode material.
Okay.
Okay. So what we see as an advantage, and the world is looking for solutions for anode. We want to be the hub for processing anode, like from battery mineral
Right.
to battery material in India.
Right.
So we see that as an advantage, and I think India has a capacity to grow in material processing. So there, that's where we think we want. We obviously, for us, anode is the natural forward integration. So we want to support the Indian cell industry by
Okay.
helping them provide the anode.
What kind of business opportunity do you see next 2 to 3 years for silent materials?
So right now we are very focused on exporting, but we are in talks with a few companies that are planning to bid for this government ACC scheme to set up cell manufacturing in India.
Okay.
So when we are in talks with them, so
Okay.
once the policy is final, I'm sure a lot of investment will come in that space. And when
Mhm.
gigafactories start getting set up, they will look for localized material.
Right.
What we see is today we want to be exporting to Europe, US, and grow our business on an export model till
Mhm.
that Indian demand gets created, which it will, I think,
Right.
in 3 to 4 years. And at that time, we hope to be around 30,000 tons a year, which
Okay.
is a good size capacity to be able to cater to any gigafactory. To give you an
Wow.
idea, 30,000 tons of anode material equivalents to about 30 gigawatt hours of
Okay. That's very nice. So, in terms of the government policies in India, how do you see is it supporting to the EV sector, and how are you viewing that overall? And why did you choose Karnataka as being one of your the state to manufacture these anodes?
So, so far, what Niti Aayog has done on the ACC scheme, I think they've drafted a very good policy to attract investment, but is limited to cell manufacturing. And they think that once cell manufacturing comes to India, the anode, cathode, and other raw material producers will follow, because if the customers here, the raw material companies will come and set up. The state EV policies, if you look at Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, are very focused on two-wheeler, three-wheeler charging infrastructure and R&D. So they're also good policies, but that kind of investment is not coming. So we are talking to the government, and they're very forthcoming to listen that this raw material ecosystem should also be put under some kind of PLI scheme, so
Yeah.
that it's not only graphite anodes, it's also cathodes,
Right.
lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt.
Right.
All this should get processed in India and
Mhm.
exported. And if there's demand in India, you cater to the domestic demand. But in the next 4 to 5 years, if you can build this ecosystem on an export basis by incentivizing investment and giving them some other incentives, you will be very, very ready and very cost competitive when cell factories come to India. So
Okay.
I think the policy is good. It needs a little tweaking, but I think they're understanding that and they're looking at that.
Okay. Talking about your business in particular of Epsilon Materials, what kind of investments you have put right in, and how do you see next 2 to 3 years for your business?
Yeah. So right now we've invested about 50 crores in the business, but
Okay.
next year, in this financial year, we plan to invest about 300 crores.
Okay.
And going ahead, every year the investment would increase a lot because we want to scale up capacity. Your earlier question, why we chose Karnataka, is
Yeah.
because that's where a lot of coal tar is available because steel industry is there.
Okay.
So we have a very integrated complex, which is our coal tar distillation, our carbon black plant, and our
Okay.
anode manufacturing facility.
Okay.
They share a lot of utilities. They share raw material byproducts also internally, and that really helps us bring our cost down. So today we are actually exporting to China, and
Okay.
we're still cost competitive compared to a Chinese manufacturer in China.
Okay.
So that gives us the belief that we have, a very good model with a very low carbon footprint,
Right.
uh, which can really help scale up the business. So the fundamentals are there, and being integrated is what helps us bring our cost down.
So, sir, does that also mean that we will be also competitive from China's annual pricing?
Yeah, so I think today, if a gigafactory came to India, he has no option but to buy from China.
Okay.
Even the gigafactories that are coming up in Europe today are
Right.
going to source from China initially because there
Right.
is no ecosystem in Europe today also.
Right.
Uh, but today, about 500 gigawatt hours are coming up in Europe, which equals to 500,000 tons of anode material, which is
Right.
not easy to build, even in the next 4 to 5 years, that kind of investment and that kind of capacity. So Europe is also going to import, but I think that's where we as a company are very well positioned to give an ex-China solution, to have a very low carbon footprint in our manufacturing process, because that's what really Europe and US are looking for when they look for solutions for raw material, you know.
Right. Right. So, you mentioned about that you will be investing 300 crores this year. Where would this investment go and the plant manufacturing or the expansion?
Yeah, it's totally into manufacturing. So we are going to grow the business from 2,500 tons a year, currently what it is, to
Mhm.
30,000 tons.
Okay, for the raw material.
Yeah, for the anode precursor business. And then
Okay.
we plan to scale that up to 60,000 and then slowly, move into the anode business. So we have started the qualification process, uh,
Mhm.
qualifying with cell companies, and it takes about 2 years.
Mhm. Okay. And if we talk about in general, as the India for the EV sector hub, many of the government officials and many other uh, people have said that India can become the global hub for EVs. What is your view on that? How do you see that?
So actually, I feel that there's a lot of adoption happening in EVs in India, especially on the two-wheeler, three-wheeler side. Adoption is happening very fast. As a result, you see a lot of demand for battery packs. So you'll see a lot more people in India that are setting up battery pack manufacturing units, but again, they're importing cells and making battery packs.
Mhm.
So somebody needs to set up cell manufacturing in India. I think there's enough demand today from battery pack manufacturers, maybe not from one particular auto company, but from battery pack manufacturers for someone to come and set up a cell manufacturing in India.
Right.
And that will really bring the cost down. So I think next 2 to 3 years, EV adoption will be, I would say, a little slow, but right after that, it will be very exponential. And we'll see. a huge surge in EV adoption.
So are you also seeing gigafactories coming to India? Battery would be manufactured in India.
Yeah, so that's what I said. I think there are companies that are going to bid for this Niti Aayog and Government of India ACC scheme that subsidizes cell manufacturing, because they are talking to us for raw materials. So people are really evaluating, doing technology tie-ups, understanding what is available in India. So I think gigafactories will come. They might start off little small, like in the sense 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatt initially, scale to 5, then 10. They might not immediately come with 30 gigawatts, But again, I think while 3, 4 years will be slow, after that adoption will be very fast and scaling up will be very fast.
Okay, one last question. In Epsilon Materials, how much money you have invested or put it all together? Because I was reading the Bloomberg report. So,
Yeah.
how was the
So right now, like I said, our investment is about 50 crores or $8 to $10 million. This year we'll put in 300 crores, so about $40 million. But to reach a scale of 100,000 tons of graphite material, what we look at, that will require an investment of about $800 million over
okay,
time.
over
So
time?
over the next 8 years, I would say,
Okay, over
we
there.
see that we will put one plant in Karnataka and we are scouting for another location in India to build another complex similar
Okay.
like to what we're doing. So not everything can be done in Karnataka. We are looking at other locations.
By when this will come? Any timelines? 3 years, 4 years?
So by 2025, we want to be at about 40,000 tons a year. And by
Okay.
2030, we want to be at 100,000 tons a year.
Okay. And if I'm not wrong, you are the first company to do this in India, right?
Yeah, we're the first ones out of India to do this.
Okay.
Uh, and, I think when the gigafactories come, they will welcome the fact that there is already some local supplier that is established, qualified, available in India. That will also hopefully incentivize them to come.
Okay. One last question on, just for the general understanding of our audience and for me as well. Can you just take us through the process of manufacturing of anode in just in a very simple form?
Yeah. So, like I said, coal tar has a lot of carbon content in it.
Right.
We further process it. We make a special, like we make a pitch kind of product. Then we have a patented furnace design where it's a continuous furnace where we put the pitch inside that, and at different temperatures we heat it and then we cool it. We
Okay.
take it up to about 600 degrees and then we cool it. And in that process, we're able to define the alignment of the carbon content inside that.
Okay.
And we remove a lot of the other volatiles in it.
Mhm.
Then we shape and mill the carbon particles inside. So that's another piece of equipment. At the end, there's a graphitization process. So at 3000 degrees, you heat the carbon. Carbon turns into graphite.
Okay.
Okay, and then eventually it is graphite that is going in the anode material.
Okay.
So, but this is called synthetic anode, what I just described. That's because you're artificially, designing everything and at the end converting it into graphite.
Okay.
So that is the process. Cell companies buy this. It's a black powder, black
Okay.
very fine powder, and then they create a slurry. So they mix it, and then they paste it on a copper foil,
Right.
and then that's the anode finally. So they do that at their end in their manufacturing process.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your time.